Alright, hey viewers, this is WatchMeSC, and welcome everyone to Tower Dive, a League of Legends podcast, brought to you by WatchMeSC and quill18.
Hey folks.
Alright, so, I'm just going to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know, I am WatchMeSC. My channel is youtube.com/WatchMeSC, and you can check that out. I post League of Legends commentaries and other sorts of gaming videos.
And I'm quill18, youtube.com/quill18. I basically do the same thing. In fact, I was pretty much inspired by WatchMeSC.
Oh, well, shucks. And that's about it for our channels. Channel updates, I already just made a fresh update video, so I don't really have much to say. Quill, you got anything to talk about for your channel?
The one thing I gotta say is that I continue to be shocked at how many people are into Dwarf Fortress, and I promise I will be continuing the game as soon as possible, but of course, both League of Legends and StarCraft 2 are taking up a lot of my time right now, so hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I've seen so many people requesting you to continue that game. I was like, wow, I didn't know there was so many people into it. Alright, so let's go straight into State of the Metagame. And this is basically going to be a part where we talk about, like, obviously, as Quill mentioned earlier, none of you heard it because we weren't recording, but it's going to depend drastically on where your ELO or ELO is, however you pronounce it. So we are probably, me and Quill, I'd like to say we're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
ELO.
Yep.
And recently, champions that are being annoying for me is obviously Vladimir. He's quite annoying. And Xin, even after his debuff, I still think he's a really strong champion.
I agree. He's super, super strong. The biggest thing for me, rather than maybe a specific hero, and this may be more of a factor of going up in ELO, it's just the game seems to be a lot more about ganking, especially really early ganking, whereas it used to be a lot more sort of individual laning and people would leave you alone and you just had to worry about the 2-on-2. There's a lot more people jumping lanes fast and just screwing with you hard, so you've always got to be on guard to watch those MIAs, even if they're not being called. So, and it seems to get turned to like 5-man ganking earlier and earlier and earlier, and that's quite a bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what I've noticed, like you said, exactly. Basically just, there's so much more ganking, and the lanes are not nearly as solidified as they were in the earlier game, where people wouldn't ever change lanes or go out for ganks or go to, like, jungle in the middle of laning even.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, in terms of the metagame, in terms of champions that I really are standing out to me, I mostly think Xin is standing out. Vlad is annoying, but he's definitely killable. I think he's a really strong champion. I don't know if OP is the correct word to describe it, but, you know, I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, I guess to a certain extent the metagame is always going to be heavily weighted towards the newer champions because a lot of people are way into it. Like, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of Galio for the next week or two. I know I'm going to be playing him a lot, so... but in terms of what champions, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree though that like the new champions are like I saw someone whining about it during one of the games. It's like the flavor of the month. Like Malzahar, everyone was all over Malzahar when he first came out,
Yeah,
and like I
sucked.
Yeah, and I like barely see anyone now playing him. Like
Yeah.
one person every like month.
Yeah, but Vlad is pretty strong, and I expect he's going to stick around. One thing that I expect to come up going forward is probably a lot more Rise, because he got some hardcore buffs this last patch, and
Yeah.
he'll probably be around to drive all this nuts. One other thing I can make a mention of is I'm seeing a lot of Garen lately, and it's all tank Garen all the time. No one builds him physical, and I guess they've discovered that tank Garen, at least with the Frozen Mallet, seems to be just uber stompage.
Yeah, I agree. I've been seeing a lot of Garen, and especially him paired with Xin is quite ridiculous.
Yeah.
Those two together is just so brutal. So, I think that's about all for that. And we're going to move on to the next one, free this week. So this is a segment where we're going to talk about the champions that are free this week. We're going to try to do this podcast every week and upload it. I don't know the day we're going to upload it yet. So, but we're going to try to do it every week, so we'll be able to cover the champions that are free during the week. And this week, we are starting off with I have chosen Vladimir, and Shen has chosen Quill, is what I was going to say. It's actually Quill has chosen Shen, so we're going to let you go first this time.
Yeah, well, I picked Shen for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a big fan of tank and support, and I think Shen is one of the best ones out there. Whenever I see a Shen on the opposite team, there's always a bit of a groan of, oh no, I got to deal with this guy again. But one of the nice things about him is I think he's actually pretty good for beginners even. They may have trouble with the global teleport, but the taunt charge is definitely strong, and a build for him is very simple. For a beginner, I would say just get yourself some ninja tabbies and a whole bunch of Sunfire capes, and you will be laughing.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I don't think is noob-friendly about him, though, is his ultimate, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, even players like of our caliber sometimes have trouble keeping a really close eye on the minimap, which is what Shen needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And so his ultimate may be relegated more towards being used in team confrontations where you can see someone getting focused down. But
yeah.
Even then, it's pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely still a very strong thing. And I don't know if I said that we're going to be going over champs that are free this week for people who are newer to the game, so we can give them a suggestion of who they can play this week and try them out and use Quill's build for Shen and try out Shen, courtesy of our suggestions. So you have anything else to say about Shen?
Not much else. Just that, yeah, he's not only is he strong, but he's a lot of fun to play. Very, very mobile, and just very, very enjoyable. I like him. Plus, you get to be a ninja, and that's always awesome. And no mana, which is really nice when you're new, because I always had the problem that I was running out of mana all the time, and that's not a problem with him.
Yep, I was just going to talk about that. Energy is a great concept for people who are newbier to the game because it's less things to manage for them.
Right, which actually segues nicely into Vladimir, who also doesn't have mana, as I recall.
Exactly, he doesn't. He actually uses his health for most of his skills. And I like Vladimir a lot. He's obviously the new champion. Everyone knows about him for the most part. His Q is quite annoying. And his W is that stupid pool where you can't target him. And then he has a little area of effect skill that I don't like that much and everyone hates on me for. And then he has his ultimate, which is basically deals damage to everyone in a small area of effect and causes them to take more damage, which makes him really great for team fights. But I've noticed you get focused a lot with Vladimir when you're using him, especially in team fights, because they know he's like a Soraka. The longer they stay in the battle, the worse it's going to go for their team, because he just is going to hit his Q and gain a lot of life and stuff like that. And as for builds, I like to max on the Q. Basically, it's called Transfusion. It's like a single target nuke and gives him some life back. Focus on that. Personally, I like to go boots first to give him just that little bit of edge. Then again, I have movement speed, runes, and masteries. So I've tried Doran's shield with him. That works okay. Or you can go an ability power build, but I've noticed late game that it gives him a lot less survivability, especially considering he gets targeted a lot. Even though he's technically a tank, he definitely gets targeted a lot. So I think tanking items are generally better on him. Like I use Mercury Treads and things like items that Quill specifically mentioned that he thought was the worst item in the game, which is Warmog's armor. I'll let you talk about that in a second. But I mean, when I combine that with Force of Nature and a Spirit Visage, it gives me 200 mana regen per 5 seconds. So it's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, well, my thing with Warmogs, and I've said it before, is simply that for the money, the amount of health you get is not necessarily worthwhile. With champions like Vladimir, who are entirely health-based, you cannot beat Warmogs in terms of health in a single item slot, so there's a lot of value there. Plus, you're playing up the health regen angle, which is often something I ignore, but with Vladimir, that's not something that should be ignored so much, so it does make Warmogs into a much, much more viable item. But if you're getting it on other champions, then I'm still going to have a grumble with you.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree with that overall, because, I mean, like you said, Warmogs, just if you're not using it for the life regen, you're missing out on a lot of the item,
Mm-hmm.
So
it also has to be on someone who can farm creeps really well or get kills very well so that you can charge it up to the max.
Exactly.
Because until it's charged, it's really, really questionable.
Subpar. Yeah, it's pretty subpar. 30-something mana or health regen per 5 is not... You're paying $3,000 for that item?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of for that item, let's move right on to our next segue. We have Item of the Week. And this is where me and Quill are going to be talking about a specific item or set of items every week. For example, one week we might cover the Doran's items, which is a good idea. I think we'll probably do that.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, and one week we'll cover all the boots, or one week we'll cover this or that. But this week we have chosen to cover an extremely underrated and underused, underappreciated item, which are the Elixirs.
Yeah,
So, go ahead, you start.
Absolutely. I think that was a great idea that you had to talk about Elixirs. I'm a big, big fan of them, but you very, very rarely see them get used unless you're watching very high-level replays on stuff like if you ever go to the Solo Mid website where the people there are like top 50 ELO in the game, and you see Elixirs come up all the time. And the thing is that, yes, they're temporary. They only last 5 minutes, I suppose, but
4
minutes. But the effect that you get is worth